I think I'm ready to start putting the wiring harness into the 72 Dodge Charger dash. All right, so I'm going to install the speaker into the dash. I bought it from Vans Auto. It's not perfect. It's not like a restoration speaker, but let me just show you. Okay, I got it from Vans Auto on eBay. So it's not a factory speaker. It's just an aftermarket speaker that was adapted to what looks like used to be an adapter plate that they just trimmed to get it to fit this opening. I think it'll work. It's going to be underneath the screen. I'm not really worried about being factory correct on this car, so I'm going to go ahead and use it assuming it's going to fit. I'm going to put the two connectors closer to the cluster for the speaker. This speaker did come with some wire, so. Okay, so looks like it's hanging up a little bit right here. It's not recessing down like it should. I'm gonna go ahead and cut some of this off and then we'll try again. All right, going to put the screen back on, and got some more fitment issues to do with the cap. You know, again, it adds thickness to the dash. You see how this corner is more sharp on this than the actual pad. That hole is aligning, but that one's kind of not. And then this side is not popping in like it's supposed to. Okay, I'm gonna have to trim these corners here or something and get this to cut it or something to get it to, you know, fit this radius, because that's not the same radius. All right, so I'm just trying to put a little melt into these sharp edges in the flat area that I ground off. This way it gives it a little bit of texture that kind of matches the rest of the dash here. It's not going to be very noticeable, but you do notice this a little bit because the screen sits a little bit lower than this. I'll never see any of this, but I should say you'll never notice any of this. This will make it less noticeable. I think I'm ready to start putting the wiring harness into the 72 Dodge Charger dash. So let me show you. So here's the 72 Dodge Charger dash. It's got a rally cluster in it. I've got this dash, which is out of that 71 Charger carcass, and it has a sweeper dash, so it's not the same. The electrical on this, or the harness on this, has like a round plug. This one doesn't have that. It's quite a bit different, but all this other stuff is pretty much the same. I just have this here so I can use it as a, you know, reference wherever it makes sense, I guess. And we're gonna try to figure out where the harness has to go in here. Do that. I just wanted to show here too and remind anybody that might be doing this, you know, there is different harnesses. So you can see this one is B body with rally gauges, which is different than that one. In fact, I bought a normal dash for this car, for the 72, my mom's 72 Charger. See there, basically B body except rally gauges. So this one's gonna have the round plug on it. So my goal is to try to get the harness in this thing, and then once we have the harness in here, I want to put this dash frame back into the 72 Charger there. So we can mainly start on my mom's car. You know, the whole point of me doing that one first was kind of to learn, figure it out before I did it to this car. So there's the fuse box. This is the plug to the firewall. When we follow all of this up, it kind of comes up here, and then the harness splits. The part that went through the firewall is not here. Basically attaches to the back of this, plugs into the firewall. This one we have it. So this side would go through the firewall. This is behind it. So this chunk of harness basically comes up. There's a thin branch that cuts off this way, and then a thicker one that comes around here for the cluster, and then another, I don't know, somewhat thick one basically goes through here over to the lights. So I'm going to try to replicate that. I mean, basically here's our 3 branches. This is our dimmer switch. So I know this guy has to come over here down to the driver's side by the bottom of the A-pillar, you know, that area. So I think we can go ahead and put this guy through here. So we got this orange wire, a ground wire, as part of the harness, the dimmer switch, all coming down here. We're gonna have to put the AC control panel in, and there's basically one of these guys that's gonna position over here. You know, looking at this guy. So there's our AC controls. There's a bracket that comes up that kind of holds the harness here, and then part of the harness goes, well, it should have went through there, probably just popped out. So this guy here is pretty short. I mean, in comparison, I think I got the wrong section here. So I think this needs to come over here, and this split here is what ends up here. So let me do that. Let's see if that makes more sense. And that reaches better. Let's go through there. And this is gonna go down to the firewall. So firewall's gonna be on this side, so it's just gonna plug in like this. Fuses will be here. It's gonna go through the firewall as well. So there's the brake light, and then these guys will be going into the steering column. This one, very identifiable. So it's gonna end up here right about where the speaker is. This guy is gonna come down this way. This is gonna go to the back of the cigarette lighter. Not sure on these guys yet, but we'll figure that out. You know, some of this stuff is cut. You know, here, somebody cut a lot of that, took that off. Anyway, it's still all together in this car. So this was sort of my last resort. If I didn't figure out something here, I could go to this car and figure it out for that car. And then once all this is done and in that car, then once I take this out and I need to figure something out, I can refer to that car and this carcass to get everything right, hopefully. But, all right, so let's run this. Let's run this guy. It's easy. You know, this guy's gonna go here, and likely there, and probably through there. Actually, I might go this way because I think this is going to probably the heater box, but it's right up to there, looks like. All this stuff. We got lights and stuff. I think these guys are gonna go over here. Go like this. If you watch nothing else in this video or don't remember anything else, this is the most important part of this video. This right here is the amp gauge. This is where all the power basically is going to come from and supply all your power to the dash and throughout the whole car basically. So this guy, what's nice about the cluster here is it tells us red here. Here's the harness. We got the red wire. So pretty easily we can figure out that this guy is gonna go there. If you get nothing else out of this video, this is probably the most important thing. All the power is gonna come through here, and it goes through the amp gauge and supplies power to the whole dash throughout the whole car basically. So there's a lot of amperage going through this guy. These guys get old, they get corroded, they start building a lot of resistance. They get hot, they melt, they catch fire, and this is responsible for a lot of cars catching fire, burning to the ground. So this is what I always do, is I jump it. You can basically bypass it and just put this wire here, and then it renders the gauge useless, which we're gonna do anyway. I don't care, because I'd rather not burn the car to the ground than have an amp meter gauge, okay? So you can just hook it up to all the same side, the single post, and that's good enough. Or you could put it here and then put like a heavy gauge jump wire across it, so that you're not relying on all the power going through the gauge, which can, you know, have corrosion, build up heat, melt down. It'll go through the wire. So I'm gonna go ahead and just hook it up to one post like that, and then we'll call that done. So that'll be our first wire plugged in. Okay, look at this. So somebody's been in here before. I started to take this nut off, because you can see this connector is broken off. So I'm gonna take this off, and as I'm doing it, I can see the nut behind it moving, wiggling around. Let me show you so you can see what I'm seeing. See that? So that's not good. I'm afraid if I don't hold it, it's just gonna twist this thing out and break the amp gauge. And as you recall, the amp gauge actually works on this thing. So, all right, I got this small adjustable wrench in here. Hopefully we can hold it just enough to get this thing to break loose. Fuck. See, this is typical car stuff, man. This is something that should have took a couple of seconds, and now it's turning into this freaking project. Very first step. Anyway, this stupid tab, I'm gonna bend it out of the way because it's preventing the socket from going on there all the way. So we can't get a good bite on it. Okay, now I got a good bite. Come on. Finally. You know, not that I'm ever gonna use the amp gauge or hook anything up to this side ever again, but you see stuff like this, it's a good idea to just take care of it now while the dash is out of the car. Because can you imagine trying to do this while it's in the car and you're laying on your back on the floor? You got to pull the seat out so you can lay on the floor and reach up in here. No lighting. Yeah, it'd just be a big pain. It's always stupid stuff like this that just causes a bunch of drama. I don't want to make it too tight where I'm splitting the insulator here. And I think this one is an original. For all I know, it's still good. I don't know, but I wanted to put new ones in. But you can see there it's a 57. But it's about the same size. I'm gonna keep that until I know it's not good. Okay, here's, if you can see that, there's the other orange. So this longer one is gonna go here. Got a bulb in there. Pop it in. I always try to put as much detail into these videos as I can, because, you know, a lot of us old school guys that are doing this, we take a lot for granted because we just know. But let me show you this up close. So I just want to show you, you got two tits on there. One there, one there. And on these bulbs, they're the same location. For the tail lights, you know, one of these would be higher up here. We'll get into that in a different video, but for the dash, these two tits are basically at the same height. Inside of this guy, see the groove? So those tits are gonna follow that channel all the way down to the bottom on both sides, okay? It's spring loaded, so basically that wire, the end of that wire is gonna touch against this, and then this side, so this is your positive and this is your ground. So actually, let's do this. So I paid money for this thing, might as well use it, right? It's a power supply. I'm pretty sure 5 volts is all that goes through the dash. So we're gonna drop this down to 5 volts. And then amperage, you know, usually your weakest fuse is, I don't know, what, maybe a 5 amp or a 10 amp. No, it's not really changing. Okay, so we got 5 volts here. I'm gonna hook this guy, let's see if it'll reach. Yeah, to the ground, and then I'm going to turn this on, and then boom, we have light. Let's try our old school bulb and let's see if it lights up. Does not light up. So the old school bulb is no good, unfortunately. All right, well, it's good to know, right? The new school, we're good. Okay. Turn the output off, power off. Back to business. Okay, we line the tits up to the slots. We push it in, spring load it, push it down, and then we clock it over clockwise. Now the bulb is in there, okay? We're gonna check all this once we get everything in the car. I can't check the bulbs. Well, I'll check this other new bulb real quick. We can only check the bulb individually because I need the light switch in order to get power, you know, through the harness to these bulbs. So we can't just put power on the amp meter yet. But when we check this, we're basically gonna put power to the amp meter. That should supply power to everything. Once I have all the switches in, we'll turn everything on and make sure that the lights illuminate. We've already checked all our gauges. The oil pressure gauge does not work in this cluster, and the clock does not work. And I'm over it. Long story short, parts are expensive and unobtainium. You cannot find the oil pressure gauge and fuel gauge is integrated as one cluster. Can't find them for this dash. Clocks, I think all of them are bad. I don't have a single clock that works, so I think they're so sensitive and they get a little corrosion, they're done. So they're in there just for looks. And there we go. So bulb works good. Might as well check it, right? Again, the nipples go into the grooves. Push it in, clock it over, make sure it's in there, don't want it falling off, and pop it back into the cluster. And just so we're all clear, this side is your ground, this side is your positive. You know, in the bottom of this guy is where you're gonna get your power, and the ground, these guys are basically touching the outer shell, and they are grounding against the case of the cluster. And that's why they're a little bit tight getting in there, because they're spring loaded, basically to ensure that you're getting a good ground against this. Looks like we got another orange here. These are such a pain in anything to do with the dash cluster. Like, you want to double, triple check it, because you don't want to find out it doesn't work once it's in the car, that's for sure. Okay, so bulb works, nipples through the grooves, give it a quarter, well, it's not even a quarter turn, it's just like, it's like a 16th turn. And then this guy is going to go here. Okay, we got 3 orange, I'm gonna call them orange bulbs, okay? 3, they're basically orange wires, but I got 3 bulbs in and the amp meter plugged in. Okay, what's next? Yeah, I screwed up. Okay, here's the other side of the amp meter. Now you can see this one's red and this one's black. You would think positive and negative. Now that would be true if we had a voltage gauge, right? Yeah, how an amp meter works. I'm gonna give you some basic electronics here, hold on. Now, I wouldn't normally bother to explain this, but because we're dealing with amp meters, I think it's significant and warrants us explaining this. So I'm gonna draw a battery here. Positive terminal, negative terminal, okay? You have your positive wires come off, your negative goes over to ground, like that, okay? And then you hook all your stuff up to the positive, and on the other side of whatever gadget that is, it's gonna go to ground. So let's just do a simple light bulb, okay? I'm gonna draw a bulb like the one we just put in, you know, kind of looks like that, right? We know this outer shell is the ground, so I'm gonna have the outer shell go to ground. This ground is gonna be shared, and then the positive is gonna come over to here, and now we've got a light bulb. Bing, it's on, right? If I were gonna hook up a voltage gauge, I would, let's just say this is a voltage gauge. I would have one, and it's gonna have like 2 terminals, okay? One of them is gonna be ground. And then the other wire, I would have it come up and like basically tap into here, and then that would tell me what my voltage is. Let's assume 12 volts. Okay. Now an amperage gauge works differently. And hopefully you're following me here so far, but an amperage gauge works differently. An amperage gauge, you can't do that. There's no ground side and positive side. Okay, how an amperage gauge works is it has to go in series with the line. Okay, so like the voltage gauge can kind of go parallel with your power line. The amperage gauge has to get in between. So you would have to like cut the wire, okay, and then you would have to have one end of the amperage gauge go in here and the other end go in here. Hopefully that makes sense. So if I were to, you know, sort of redraw this with an amperage gauge, the wire would come out here, it would go to our bulb would go to ground, this would come over like this and go straight to the battery, like so. All right, so if we had this circuit, the bulb would still illuminate and we would just have an amperage gauge in series. The problem is, okay, so if you could imagine your car, you've got a voltage gauge, and this thing starts getting corroded, this thing starts to go bad, it's in parallel with the system, so it doesn't have any impact to it. It would basically just maybe read incorrectly, maybe it wouldn't work at all, and it wouldn't affect your main circuit. In this scenario, which is the Mopar system uses an amperage gauge. Basically what you're doing is you're running all the power through here. So when this thing starts to get corroded and it starts to build resistance, which starts to build heat, which can cause fire. And all the power going through this guy to supply everything through the car, it gets that hot and it starts to melt and catches fire, your whole car burns to the ground. I think they make like an aftermarket amperage gauge, which has some safeties built into it, I guess. You know, I'm not sure how it works. I don't have one, but my solution is you just bypass it. Basically, we'll run this wire to this side, so we don't use the other side of the amperage gauge, so it's basically out of the system. So it kind of looks more like it's coming along, it's just attaching here. Everything's attaching together and then it goes on. So if it goes bad, it doesn't start to build resistance and it doesn't catch fire. All right? All right, so you got it? Hopefully you got it. Now, I've tried to take this apart, but it's on there, man. I think it's kind of corroded. But here's what I'm gonna do. I assume it comes apart right there, but I don't wanna break it. So if this bulb works, I'm just gonna leave it, all right? So we got this grounded here. I'm gonna hook up this wire to the positive. Turning my power supply on now. Boom, we have light. Okay, so that bulb I'm gonna leave. And whenever you see an orange wire that's got a bulb on it, and you see a harness like that, this is where it plugs into. So that guy's in. And keep in mind, these are not always all used. It kind of depends on the car, what options it came with. So some of them, you might use one, you might use all three. Or what I want to do is I want to plug in as much easy stuff as possible. Again, this is just how my brain works, but you know, I see all this chaos and it drives me crazy because it's like, ah. So if I get, you know, bulbs in some of these guys, by the way, there's green goes there. If I get a lot of this stuff plugged in, it makes it less stressful for me because then it's like, well, you got to figure out where this one thing goes. So anyway, let me go get some bulbs. We got a red, what is red? And we've got a green. Green should be, I'm thinking, blinker. All right, my dad gave me this many years ago. This is when we lived in North Highlands. He had it shipped. It's the old shipping label. Came out of Montebello, California. He kept it in the original shipping box. It's really old, so we got to be really careful. It's a Mopar ignition system when you get the Mopar distributor kit back in the day. This is way back in the day. This would have been 90s. We've got a bunch of schematics in here. So I've kept it in there so I don't lose it. Yeah, this thing is gold. All right, so let's find Dodge. 71 Challenger, 71 Coronet and Charger. Yeah, I think maybe this is up to 671. I'm not seeing 72s. Let me just give you an idea. I'm gonna zoom in and show you all the different things that it has. So I'm looking at 71 backup lights, dome light, glove box light, headlamp, high beam indicator, instrument panel lights, license plate light, parking brake indicator, parking brake turn signal, radio dial light, shift dial indicator, turn signal indicator, fender mounted, I assume the lights. So I want, okay, instrument panel light. So Coronet Charger, page 158. Well, that ain't right. That's a Vega. Dart Valiant. Chrysler Imperial. Air conditioning vacuum circuit, 71 Coronet. I mean, this looks like harness stuff here, but that's Polera Monaco. 68 Charger power windows. Power windows for Challenger. Power windows for 71 Coronet Charger. Minor manuals, I don't need that. It feels like the book is a little disorganized, you know. I'm not sure what their logic was. There's not really a very good index to find everything. But I know it's in here. I know if we just keep looking, we're going to find 71 Charger. Be happy-go-lucky. Challenger, 71 Coronet and Charger except wagons, body wiring. Okay, so you probably have heard me say this before in another video. I know I've mentioned it maybe a couple times, but if you didn't realize it, the 1971 and 1972 Dodge Chargers and Roadrunners are actually E-bodies. I know, shocking, right? It's a B-body. Yes, it is a B-body, but it is not the same B-body as the 68 to 70 B-bodies. They're a different animal. If you were to actually look closely at an E-body, CUDA or a Challenger, they share the whole front half of the car. I'm not talking about fenders and fascia type stuff, but when it comes to the fender wells, the firewall, the core support, the front frame rails, the cowl, all of this is E-body. It's the same as an E-body. Dash frame is different on E-bodies, but all this stuff is different. And I've also told you this before too. This is kind of a history type thing, and it's weird that it's not very common. It's not commonly known in the Mopar hobby, but this comes from my buddy John Jones, who just knows a ton of stuff. But anyway, what's commonly known is a couple of stories, which on the General Motors camp side. So in 1958, when Chevy went to the 58 body style, nobody liked them. And so what Chevrolet did is a lot of their factories kept building 57s deep into 58. That's why there's shit tons of 57 Chevys and not a whole lot of 58s. 58s weren't selling. So Chevrolet basically just cranked out more 57s through 58. Now, a similar story happens with Chevrolet, and it also impacts Mopar. The Mopar side is not as well known, but on the Chevy side, if you're a Chevy guy or you know some basic Chevy history, you know that they made a shit ton of 69 Camaros and they didn't make very many 70 Camaros, right? Because the body changed, right? And you might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, did they do the same thing as the 57 Chevy story? No, it wasn't that the 70 Camaro was ugly, although some might believe that, but you know, and they sold more 69s because it was a better looking body, which I personally think is true. But you know, there's a lot of people that like 70 Camaros as well. But anyway, what had happened is the UAW, the unions, basically went on strike in 69. Instead of the 69 model Camaro coming out, which usually was around, I think they started building the cars maybe around August, September timeframe. So they would usually start hitting the lots. The next year model would start hitting the lots around September back in those days. So a 70 Camaro would have been built in August, September of '69, but because they went on strike, they couldn't launch the 70 Camaro, so they just kept building 69s all the way through the end of '69. So you figure not quite the middle of '68 when they started the 69, but they had over a year, like a year and 3 or 4 months worth of cars being built in 69 model cars. So that's why they say the 70 Camaro is like, it's a 70 and a half, because it actually started production. I'm not sure where it started production, but it started somewhere in 1970 or maybe really late '69. They lost a few months. So that's why there's not as many 70 Camaros. Okay, all well-known story. What about Mopar? Okay, this is I think really cool, and like you always think it's horrible when a union decides to strike and it affects our hobby or the cars we love. But in this particular case, it worked to our advantage, I think, because we got some really cool cars out of it. So these are 72 Chargers, but the 71 Charger is basically the same car. The 71 Chargers and Roadrunners were actually designed to be the 1970 model. Chrysler was going to launch all new platforms. So the 70 Cuda, brand new platform. The 70 Challenger, brand new platform. And what you were going to also get is a brand new platform for the Charger and the Roadrunners, which were basically E-bodies as well. So that whole new platform all across the board, the B's and E's were basically going to be the same car, or same base car, same design. But because UAW went on strike, Chrysler was unable to launch. They basically postponed the launch of the 70 Charger and Roadrunner, which would have been these cars, this style car, to 1971 instead of 1970. So instead of having a 70 Charger that looks like this, they took the previous generation and they just extended it one more year, and they put new body panels on it. So the Super Bs, the Roadrunners, the Chargers of 1970 were cars that weren't going to exist. So because it was easier to just put new skin on those cars than to launch the whole new platforms of the B bodies. So strike ends, blah, blah, blah. The launch of this body style B body got pushed back to 1971. But it's curious how you could tell that the 71 B bodies, they should have launched when the 70 and Challengers and Cudas launched, because they're basically the same platform. So, and they didn't. They got postponed. They got pushed back. So interesting little trivia there for you. All right, back to business, back to the harness. We've got the 71 Challenger, Coronet, Charger. Why is an E-body and a B-body mixed together? Is it because it's the same platform? Yes, it is. Anyway, let me get a picture of this for you. That was the engine compartment. I'm still looking for the dash. Engine compartment. So this is a Charger one. Also Challenger, Coronet, Charger. I would imagine Cuda as well, but for whatever reason, because we're in a Dodge section. Anyway, this one's the Charger, or the Hemi. I'll get a picture. Instrument panel. Okay, now we're getting where we want to go. This is all 68. I don't want to end up taking pictures of everything. I'm just limiting everything to the 71 Charger, which, by the way, I have no idea if there's going to be differences between the 71 and 72. My harness here is specific to 1972, so there's probably some differences, but I'm going to guess not a lot of differences. So hopefully the schematic helps us out. 71 instrument panel, 71 Coronet and Charger. Finally, here we go. Okay, this is going to be interesting because this is the non-rally dash. This is not a Mopar book, so it's got everything in here. We've got GM and Ford and AMC and stuff like that too. I'm hoping there's a rally dash in here. May not be. I might have to go get a manual and find it. All right, had to go through my books because we don't have a rally dash in that schematic book. I got a 72 Plymouth Chrysler Imperial book, and we've got the wiring harness in here. And it says instrument panel, rally cluster, satellite, aka the Roadrunner. Surprised they put satellite, but maybe when they printed all this, they weren't sure if they were going to have the rights to continue using Roadrunner. But anyway, this is what I'm looking for. So now I could trace all the different colors of wire to figure out, you know, which wire goes to which gauge. This is going to be super helpful. So let me get a picture of this for you. I'm going to end up making copies of this so I can write on it if I have to. I don't want to write in the book. By the way, this is one of those reprints. So it's a brand new book. It's not an original. It would be yellow looking like that by now if it was, which is kind of funny because I don't remember if it was this one or a different one. They basically like scanned an original book and you could see like greasy thumbprints and stuff like that in it. So I'm not sure it was this one, but I think it might have been the Charger book. All right, next thing I'm going to put in is the flashers. I got these from O'Reilly's. There's the part numbers, EFL552. One for the emergency flasher and one for the turn signal. So going to the schematic, give you an overall. I'm starting to highlight the stuff that I'm kind of taking care of here. This one right here is our turn signal. You can see right there, it's in orange. And then our hazard flasher. I should have put this one in blue. I started to. Comes over here, here, hazard flasher. All right, so we got our flashers out here. Okay, so our flashers are P for pink and BK for black. These guys are easy to spot because there's only two of them, and they basically have this 90-degree attachment. So we can put that in like so. And here we got pink and black. And then the other one goes over here. It's right here at the ashtray. This guy plugs in like this. And then it pops into this pocket on the side of the ashtray like that. That's where that goes. And this one, red and black, red and black. Red and black is the turn signal. So this one's actually the turn signal. This one's actually the emergency flasher. Let's do this guy next. We got this, this is that red molded piece. And then we have our cigar lighter here. And it looks like a pink wire going to it. There's this piece. Pink wire, pink and red. Pink and red. I think that goes there. It's not really coming off of this, not here anyway, but maybe back in here it does. Okay, pink and red. This shows red. All right, and we got this guy here. Just gonna go into this guy here. Let's see if we can figure out what this is. Blue, gray, brown. It's the seatbelt relay. So this is like to the buzzer that makes noise. I'll go ahead and plug it in, but I'm probably gonna unplug it because that's why I crossed it out. I don't really want to use it. But to, you know, keep things look like they're going in the right direction, we're gonna plug stuff in so that it's out of our way. This one's pretty straightforward. Okay. Again, that's the seatbelt buzzer. Okay, got another bulb to check here. Double check it before we put it on. On. All right, it works. I'm gonna put it right here into the brown wire. I think the brown wire is our turn signal for right hand. Let's check. All right, turn signals. I marked them with this fluorescent color here. So the left one is a light green and the right one is a tan. So the tan is here. This guy's not marked on the clock, but that's where the marker goes. You can see it's kind of stretching to reach over there. I screwed up. This should be coming out right here. Let me unplug all this. And let me reroute it through here. Okay, let's figure this all back out. So tan, which is a turn signal, gonna go here. Orange, just illumination light, dash light, goes there. Orange here, orange here. Okay, this makes a lot more sense. When I was going this way, I had the longest wire, or the longest bulb, going to this side, which didn't seem right because this wouldn't really reach. So it actually has to go this way. Then that orange bulb goes there, and then our violet goes here, which is temperature. Now, negative side. Okay. All right, I think I got those guys out of the way. Let's figure out where blue and gray go. There's our violet. So our violet's hooked up right. Okay, found gray. Gray is going to the oil gauge. And then on the other side of the oil gauge, it's coming over here to the temperature gauge, opposite side the violet. Okay, so here's the oil gauge. Okay, gray here. Okay, gray there. And these two connect. All right, then we've got blue. Fuel gauge is blue. And it says blue on here. And that is our fuel gauge. Okay. All right, so in the schematic, it's calling this blue, but it's black. And it's connecting this side of the oil pressure gauge to this side. Let's see if I can get it to reach, which is the temperature gauge, and then this side, but it is showing a third wire go to this guy, which is the voltage drop, which is here, our fuel gauge. So I'm going to connect it there. I mean, I'm lucky this piece was actually on the other cluster. It wasn't routed properly, but anyway. Okay, then we got ignition here. Looks like INT-ROL between those two. Maybe is these two wires here. It just shows 5 volt and 12 volt. So I imagine, you know, this is the resistor that drops it to 5 volts. And then you follow this wire, it is black. It comes all the way, let's see, just make sure. You know, it comes all the way to here, which is the yellow molded accessory plug, which is this guy. It's like, why would it go to that guy? And there's two. They're both black. They're both with each other. So I assume they're doing the same thing. Maybe they both need a plug in here. I don't know. I mean, where else does it go? Unfortunately, it's different on this one. Yeah, it's just completely different. Okay. Let me go look stuff up, see what I can see. All right, so this is bbodiesonly.com. 71 Beeper posted this. And I'm looking at the wiring. So basically these guys are kind of daisy chained together. I believe this is going over here to this side of the oil gauge. So, and then I think, you know, these kind of have, they look like that, but they're flat. And then you have this guy that looks like this, which is different than what's on the harness, but it's the only two black wires. So I'm going to put them there. We'll see what happens, see if that's right. So you can see those are the connectors that were on the harness, black wires. They're the only two black wires that have that type of connector that are close enough to this. So I think that's what goes there. Anyway, we're going to run those there. Hopefully that's right. Now I've got this guy here, which goes to the map light or rear speaker. I think it's just a map light in here right now. There's a little harness. So you can see here, this is the plug that goes to the map light. Then this is the other end of it, which plugs into there, I think, because It's got that same shape. And then also the speaker wires come off of this. So it's kind of strange because then that would imply it has to run to the radio. All right, let's pull, see, speaker wires. Let's pull this guy off. Where's this going? Over here. It's another thing. I need to put the controls back in. So I'm going to put the controls back in as well. I can't find this, so I might have to take it off of this one, put it over there. Then, where'd this go? I'm guessing this probably went to the rear speakers. I'm going to have to remember that wiring loom bracket, so I'm making a note here in this video, mainly for myself. It's going to be about here. This guy has to go through it. Then it's going to go down here and I think plug in for the back speakers. And I think this, instead of coming here, needs to go up top side. Plug this guy in. And this guy's going to supply power here. Okay. And then I'll have to remember this goes to the speaker. So I'm going to end up cutting those wires off of that bad speaker and then plug it into this guy. There's a bracket here I have soaking in Vapor Rust right now, and it's got a brace for the radio. I'm going to have to pull the screen back off to put the nut on it. That's going to go here. Whew. Okay, let's figure out, I think this probably all goes to the radio. All right, got the power supply hooked up to this light, and I have no idea how you change the bulb or if it's even made to change. Basically, the light is coming through that little hole. I did test this one and it works. There's no wire on here. So we got this guy. I'm gonna turn it on. I'm gonna zoom you in. Ready? On. Off. See the light go out? Very small amount of light. One giveaway is when you don't have a complete circuit. When you turn this on, your amperage will go to 0. The fact we have amperage here tells me there's electricity flowing through it, so it's good. All right, that's that. Okay, the other thing, the air conditioning controls. Got the old harness here. Gotta go through. Anyway, here they are. You go through all this and try to get this out of here so I can bolt it up to the dash frame. Also, I need to pull out the light switch, which is here. See if it works. Yeah, what else? Here's one of the flashers. Here's another flasher. All right. Anyway, let me get the pieces I need off of this. Okay, there was actually 2 harnesses here. That's one. That's the other. Orange to black. Orange and black to orange and black. Light green, dark green, 2 browns. And this big connector here. All right, let's see. These are going to go in these studs right here. There's also some pins here. See these pins? And these holes have to go over those pins. Okay. There's lights in here, 1 on each side. So let me pull that. Check the bulb. Hey, the old bulbs worked. I'm gonna change them out, but I'll keep them just for backup. That's the new bulb. All right, there's the vacuum lines. So on the original harness, it's got 2 blacks and 2 orange coming off of here. This one just has 1. This is going to go to the light switch, which is going to come through here. Okay, so these 2 go together. That makes sense, right? The prongs match. Okay, and then this guy, green, brown, green. Maybe that's a separate harness for the AC controls. Here's the harness I need. It is nearly independent. All right. Just remember, we got this guy going to the yellow accessory. This black wire goes into the harness with the switch. Okay, let's pull this yellow wire out. Accessory. Then this harness goes in here to number 3 and number 4. And number 3 is the blue wire, number 4 is the 2 greens. So I looked at the schematics and this is correct, but it also shows a brown and yellow wire. It goes to the seat buzzer to number 3. I don't see a brown and yellow here. Anyway, I don't want to use the seat buzzer, so I'm going to just take it out of the new harness and put this blue wire here and these 2 green wires here, which is to the AC harness. When you're sliding this guy in here, you're basically trying to push this away because this is a barbed end. It locks it in place, so you're pushing it, unlocking it. It's a little bit tough. Blue goes to number 3. Green goes to number 4. Black and white. There's a bigger gauge black and white here. There's actually several black and whites to the light switch. And I don't see a black and white on the harness. On the new harness, pull this one off. Get it off this harness. It's the last thing connecting it to this harness. Harness is free. Let's go hook it up before I forget where everything goes. So we'll start here. Okay, so this is where we're going to need the black wire. Here's the light switch. Oh, hey. What do you know? Black wire. Okay. Let's take this back off. Let's put this in here. Is that right? Okay. All right, that's hooked up. And then this guy goes to this guy. Those are back where they were because this is part of the original. This is the original harness for this, for the AC controls. And then this is going to the switches, which is basically the blower motor. And this is going to go through here. I know it looks like spaghetti right now, so hopefully you guys are following this. This is reaching about right. Here's the yellow harness for the accessory, so that plugs in there. Okay, that part's done. Throw this back up this way. Get out of our way. Stereo stuff. I cannot find the stereo. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I can't find the stereo to my mom's car, but I found this stereo, which I do think came from the blue car, but somebody cut all the wires, unfortunately. Or it might be I got this with the other dash cluster, the rally that's kind of beat up. All right, so this harness splits off. I think it's going to split off right here. Basically, we want it to come down to here and plug in. There's 3 and 4, so I'm going to unplug number 3. Okay, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, but like I said, I think this is brown and yellow. It goes to the buzzer, so I'm not really going to care too much about that. All right, so the green, double green, goes to number 4. Let's double check. Dark green to number 4. And dark blue to number 3. Okay, so that's all hooked up. We go back to the cigarette lighter. The light for the cigarette lighter. This guy is an orange wire, and this orange wire right here goes to this. Okay. All right, you can see this arm right here, this clamp. I need to get that off. I'm going to soak it in some Evaporust and then paint it, and then we'll put this on that guy. Also, this is different between the 71. All right, so it attaches right here, pull that screw. This guy bridges across to here. So let me pull that screw. Okay, so I pulled this screw out. This guy comes across here and then attaches to the back of the board here, which I assume is that post there. All right, here's the bracket, and then let me go soak it. All right, next important thing is to pull the light switch. Hopefully it still works. Let's see. Yeah, this one's the light switch because it's got the dimmer. Don't want to mess it up. You know what I got to look for is the rod for the light switch. I haven't seen it in a while. Found the rod. I'm not sure which way it goes. I think it goes that way. Okay. We got this kit of glass fuses from Harbor Freight. So we've got a variety of amps here. Hopefully we've got everything we need to populate the fuse block. Okay, 5 amps. Instrument panel. Something assembly. All right, 20 amps is next. We have 120. Most everything's 20. Everything else is 20. All right, out of 20s. Let's see what else I got. All right, got some more 20s. I don't think I have enough though. Let's see. Yeah. I have just enough. Cool. Okay. Let's see if this works. Black to ground, red to the amp meter, power supply, we're at 12 volts. Hopefully nothing fries. Okay, stuff is on. Not seeing any lights come on. So this is aggravating. This is a testament to why you test stuff. So I had the cluster in here. It was looking really good. I thought I was done. And of course I wanted to test it. You know, I wanted to put power to it and at least turn the dash lights on and see if they would come on and work and everything. As I'm doing all of that, it was shorting out. I had a short. And after tracing it, this is what I found. So the short was to the ammeter gauge. And if you recall in the previous video, it was working just fine. I mean, what I did is, before I go further, somebody in the comments said you shouldn't be putting full power to the ammeter gauge because power's just going through it. And he's right. It's not like a volt gauge where you put positive and negative. You're basically flowing through it. So probably shouldn't do it. I did it anyway. And it didn't damage it. And I double checked it. And I just basically turned the power on and then back off right away. But anyway, I was getting a short here. I pulled the nuts off of it and tried to loosen it up, see if the short would go away, and it didn't. And I don't know if you recall, but I never took these out. These guys I left in here. I only pulled the clock out and the speedometer out. But it looks like somebody previously, see how that's twisted? It's supposed to look like that, and it's twisted. So somebody had this out before, and or they just tightened this up and they over tightened it. Or I did, and I just don't remember, but I don't think I did, but I might have. So it twisted that. It broke the gasket. So this guy was basically shorting against the frame hence why I had a short. So at a minimum, I need a gasket, and I'm gonna go pull the crappy dash apart and see if I got a good gasket I can use here. And then I'm gonna try to re-straighten this stuff. Maybe it's okay. I did check it again. It is working just fine. So I think I could straighten it as long as I don't break it, and hopefully that fixes it. Since I have this thing back out, as you recall, my old pressure gauge doesn't work. I was gonna let it go, not worry about it, but I just talked to my buddy Chris, and we were talking about this cluster, and he actually has some spares, so I might be able to get what I need from him. So if he does have an amp meter that's in good condition, I'll probably just use that one instead of that one. I think I'm gonna buy the whole cluster from him,